Hello and welcome back to Holistic Health Devas. And after a little break, we have a very interesting talk session today, and we will be covering the topic, which is a very important topic these days that everyone experiences, which is stress. So the questions are mostly from the audience when we posted and asked them, like, what would you like to know about stress? And today we have our most favorite guest, FI Jamieson Folland. So, who will be answering our questions on stress management and how to cope up with stress these days. Hi, FI. Welcome back.
Hello. It's great to see you, Preeti. It's always good to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, it's always such a pleasure to have you and have you talk about the most important topics in our talk sessions. And today's topic is about stress. You, as a health coach, have been, you are coaching people on stress management and things like that. So I believe you're the right person and you're the best person to talk about it. So, Fee, what causes it and how can it affect our health?
Really great question. And I'm really pleased that you've chosen this topic, Preeti, because I think it's really key for our lives full stop, especially as the pace of life seems to get more so rather than more people being chill, but especially at the moment with what we're experiencing with the pandemic. So I've made some notes, so you'll see that I'm going to be referring to them so that it helps keep me on track. And there's quite a lot that I want to cover in this, so I'm sure you'll help me keep on track too. So stress describes each of our physical or emotional stress responses. So it describes each of our physical or emotional responses to demands and pressures of daily life. That's basically what it is. And that comes from a whole variety of different areas, as we well know. And it's actually a natural and very important part of being alive. So the person, Hans Seeley, who started working on stress originally and coined it and discovered it, if you like, he realized that actually a certain amount of stress is really important in our lives. If we don't have certain levels of stress, we're dead. We're basically non-responsive. However, experiencing lots and lots of it, especially cumulatively over a long time, can really put a substantial continued strain on our body, and it really can contribute to serious health problems such as heart disease, which is an obvious one, high blood pressure, form of heart disease, digestive challenges, multiple digestive challenges, diabetes, hormonal and mental disorders such as depression or anxiety. And so some of the commonest causes of stress include being under some kind of pressure. And especially again, when these are accumulative over a period of time, it might be studying for exams, it might be an upcoming interview, it might be even something fun like going away on holiday. It's like, oh my gosh, I need to plan this, and I've got to organize stuff. So it's that kind of pressure. Facing big challenges, worrying about something, for example, relationships, money, illness, or the possibility of illness, even though one might not be sick, and that's a classic at the moment. People worried about their health, not having much or any control over the outcome of a situation. That's a big one. Having responsibilities that we're finding overwhelming, not having enough work, activities, or change in our lives. Change is actually quite important. Too much is not good, but not enough is not great either. Times of uncertainty. And a great example, like I said earlier, is the multiple ways that the impact of the pandemic is having, or the multiple ways that it is impacting our lives in lots of different ways. And, it was really interesting to see some results that came from a pediatrician who was studying children and looking at, for children who are born in the year 2000 onwards, what they're finding is that their IQ is 20 points lower than the average child, newborn or within that first year of life, because of the way that things are so different now. And it's probably to do with the amount of stress and concern and fear, but that's impacting for obvious reasons in multiple ways. That is it's measurable. You can see it in the young people, so it's not just older people.
Yes.
So those would be
and
some thoughts on
stress at times, like people worry a lot about others, about family members, about their children. Even that can cause huge amount of stress. And I've seen that in the last 2 years, like even if a person has not gone through health challenges, it's always the family member, it's a friend who's suffering, it's a
Yes.
colleague, and you keep worrying and wondering what is in store for me. So that's very
Everyone knows
stressful.
someone, right? Everyone does.
Yes, yes.
Now more so than ever. Yeah, that's really true.
Right. Right. Okay. So, what are the ways to deal with stress? Like tips to deal with day-to-day stress, especially the stress that comes from relationships, because mostly we get affected by the pressure and stress that comes through relationships. So,
It's
what do you
well
say?
put. And that,
How,
that
what
might
are
be
the tips to
relation.
manage it?
Yeah, good question. Great question. And this, I love this part because this is where we start to think about possible solutions. And the thing with this is that we're all different. So what might work for me may not work for you, and vice versa. So it's about maybe that I'm going to be going through quite an extensive list, and it might be worth taking notes either now when you first listen to this, if you're listening in, or listen through first and then pop back to this part in the video, maybe make a mental note now of where it is, so you can come back and maybe make some notes on ones that pop for you that you might want to trial for you. And as I've already said, a certain amount of stress in life is normal. That's a normal part of life. And the key is figuring out, identifying our own best formula for this, because it's based on what I call our cellular fingerprint, the way that each of us is so different. So the first one I'm going to mention is exercise. So it's one of the most important things we can do to combat stress. So how come? What is it about it? Well, there's several things. Number one, the stress hormone. So exercise actually helps to lower our body's stress hormones, such as cortisol. And in the long run, it actually helps us to release endorphins, which are chemicals that can improve our mood and act as a natural painkillers. So exercise can be valuable for that reason. Number two, it can be valuable for our sleep because it can help improve our sleep quality, which can be negatively impacted if we're stressing about things. Number three is our confidence. So when we exercise regularly, we may feel more competent and confident in our body, which in turn can help with how we feel emotionally and mentally and our well-being. And it's ideal to find one shoe fits all in this scenario. It might be the exercise, one form of exercise that somebody finds quite stress busting and stress relieving, like going for a long walk in the countryside. Other people will be almost falling asleep with that. They're better off in the gym hammering it on some machines, and they find that after that they just feel so much freer. So it's really important to find the one that works best for you. Walk, yeah, exactly. Gym might be pumping iron, it might be walking, it might be dancing, because that can be quite a lot of fun.
Zumba is a lot of fun.
Why, absolutely. Yoga can be a really good way. Yeah. Yoga can be excellent because it can be therapeutic on multiple levels, and it doesn't just need to be sitting there meditating sort of yoga. It can actually be quite active for those who need that as well. For me, I've certainly found when I was younger, I needed to be doing something really physical to feel that release. Whereas now I'm good with both. I'm really great with gentle stretching, something that is a quieter form of yoga, like yin yoga, which is about deep stretching in the fascia. So, and this actually has been shown to improve things like our blood pressure levels and bring them back into a normal range. So the next one after exercise are specific nutritionals. And there are several that research has shown, and I've also found for me personally and for many clients, that can actually help reduce stress and anxiety. But it's really important, and we actually covered this on, I think, one of our recent recordings, which is optimal health.
When we spoke
really
about
possible.
Optimal health, yes.
Yeah. So there's some specifics in there that I recommend you just pop back to that, whiz through, so we get to that point where I make some specifications about that to make sure that it's actually going to be something that might well be able to help you. And you're welcome to reach out if you've got any questions about that. And when it does come to stress, there is a specific protocol I do recommend. And in fact, for one lady who followed this, she noticed that her stress levels reduced significantly within just days of starting her nutritional protocol. And I actually heard just back yesterday from a lady who's starting to notice a difference after about 10 days of starting hers.
That sounds amazing, yeah.
It really can, and gosh, we all know the difference of things like the next one I'm going to mention, which is hydration. The difference that can make, and how it's been directly linked to especially brain function, how it can really mess with that if we're not properly hydrated. So how much would we be drinking? How much do we need to be? Well, everybody's different, but it's a rough estimate of around 1.5 liters, and little is often, along with more dense, fluid-rich foods rather than processed ones. So it doesn't have to be raw, but veggies, fruits, and so, for example, grains that haven't been processed. That's a good way to make sure we're keeping our body hydrated rather than taking fluid away. So another one is reducing our caffeine intake. So even if we're replacing the coffee, even if it's just one of the coffees in the day, with green tea, it's a really good boost of antioxidants, and that's such a good bonus for us. And it helps to reduce the load on the adrenal glands. Writing things down can be really powerful.
Journaling. Yes.
So powerful. Even if but I don't have a journal, you don't need to have a journal. It might be that one day, by your bed, you might keep notes. It doesn't have to be in a journal, or you might be on your desk, or it might even be in the car. You stop, you pause, you write something down that's on your mind, or when we do, it can make such a big difference. Especially, like I say, if you're waking at night worrying over something, it can really be a good way to get it off our chests. Next one is spending time with friends and family, including pets. And that cuddle time with loved ones is actually when we can release that. It's called the love hormone. I love this one. It's my favorite one. It's called oxytocin. It's the love or hug hormone. And in fact, the Blue Zone study, which are areas in the world where people live the longest and the happiest, those who actually have their own pet that they live with, they live longer and happier lives. It's been documented.
So amazing,
it's fantastic.
Living with a community, all that matters.
Exactly. And within that, say if it's good friends, belly laughing. And it's even better when it's not just, laughing at something's fabulous. When we get to share that with friends, that's when the magic can really happen. And it increases the power of that for us. Taking a bath. So I don't have a bath anymore, but we're actually looking, Chris and I were looking in our place where we live now, at a place that we're going to be popping an outdoor bath with a really amazing view. So taking a bath, lighting a candle.
In nature.
In nature would be amazing. So we can listen to soothing music, even if we're not in nature in the bath, using essential oils. So I think we've possibly mentioned on previous recordings, lavender, rosemary, chamomile, they can all be really helping to relax. And also steaming with essential oils is a great way too, to really impact our emotions, impact the way that our system is coping, and impact our nervous system. This is also a great time if we're in the bath, or maybe part of Shavasana at the end of yoga, or even at the beginning, to practice deep breathing. And this can really be a powerful way of regulating our stress response, helping us shift into the parasympathetic part of our nervous system, where we get to rest and digest and heal. And this is the opposite to the sympathetic flight or fight or flee response, which is that sympathetic part of the nervous system, which is literally where we might need to fight for our lives. And we that's the mode that we go into when we're doing, I call it doing stress, because it's not who I am, it's just an action. So you might be throwing a ball. It doesn't mean that I am throwing, that's who I am. It's actually just something that I do. And it's a doing word. And it's the same with stress. I am doing it, or I'm not doing it so much. And it allows that separation rather than it's all consuming, it's who I'm being. It's actually something I'm doing at that time. So it really allows us to flick back into a mode that means that we're less likely to do that. It's a way of being able to it's a way of being able to direct our nervous system, which can be very powerful, just the simplicity of deep breathing. Next one is
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
I have a question because I know you do it a lot and I love doing it, which is listening to music and listening to podcasts and people talk. Like there are so many talk sessions or talk shows, like, when you're clouded with so much of thoughts in your mind, to really relax you, it's always good to choose your best speaker and listen to them. That really helps. It helps me a lot.
Yes. You're right.
So
you're absolutely right.
Would you recommend some good podcasts or like some good talks? It just came to my mind and I thought I should ask you about this. Yeah.
Well, actually, how about you? Because you've probably got more on your mind than I do in terms of good ones.
Yeah.
Which ones would you recommend?
I usually listen to Sadhguru. He is...
You've told me about him.
Yeah, he's a spiritual leader. And I really love listening to him. And there are a lot of podcasts. Like I'm not talking particularly about anything, but then it depends. It also depends on what kind of mood I am in. If it's something that I want to listen about health, so I go and choose. I don't know. Like listening to Mark Hyman helps me a lot. I don't know.
He's great.
It's the way his pitch and the way he delivers his talks. I mean, it's very good. And I know that many people follow Brené Brown and,
she's amazing.
Marie Folio. Oprah Winfrey is definitely a big motivation for me.
Yes.
Just listening to her gives me a lot of self-assurance and happiness. And, there's much more to do in life. I feel that way. Yes.
Yes, I totally agree. One who comes to mind for me is Michael Singer. He's phenomenal.
Yes. You always talk about him, yes.
Oh my gosh. And I've read a lot of his work, but I haven't. Listening to him is extraordinary. So in his lecture series. So no, it's both, like you say, uplifting and yet really incisive for what I seem to be needing. It's varied. And so I get the variety that I'm getting. I get what I need within that variety that's provided. It's very personal. So it's what you might be encouraged, hearing some of these ideas that we've shared, for those of you who are listening, to just actually play around a little bit. And it's just such an amazing resource, I think, podcasts being available. It's really powerful. Yes. Good question. So next one I've got on my list is practicing mindfulness and gratitude, something that you're I know you're very passionate about. And this has been found to have multiple health benefits, including helping to reduce depression and reducing blood pressure if it's high. Practicing healthy boundaries. I really love this one. And this includes saying no. Especially, this can be especially valuable because you were asking in particular around relationships. And this might be with our partner, significant other, it might be our family, children, our boss, and co-workers. So having these healthy boundaries, and it might not be no forever. It's just actually, it would be really good for you to come back to me, maybe tomorrow or next week about that. So we can use boundaries they can actually not only just help us, but they can help other people, especially if it's a stressful situation.
Absolutely.
We can take our time, and sometimes we need to. And the last one I've got on my list here, and it kind of ties into that, if there's feeling pressure, is to procrastination. Okay, so we might be feeling pressured in one way, but so an example of this might be worry. We might be worrying about something and going round and round and round in it. Something that I actually say to myself sometimes is, okay, I say, look, I'm going to come back to worrying about that and fretting about it in 5 minutes, I promise. But just for these next 5 minutes, I'm going to have a 5-minute break. And my brain is always a lot more able to deal with it and emotionally when I come back to it in 5 minutes. So I make a deal with myself. And what happens some of the time, do you think, when 5 minutes is up?
You forget about it.
I don't go back to that thing. I've let it go.
You move on.
Yeah.
Good.
So that might be a handy little tip for some.
It is. It's a pretty useful. It's very simple to do this kind of practice. And once you start doing it, I believe you will the mind gets used to it. And then you automatically stop there, and then you give a pause and you move on. Perfect.
It's like boundaries. It's the same with boundaries. Just having it doesn't have to be a hard stop boundary where you say no to someone or something. It just might be, hey, not right now. Let's talk about that later.
Right.
When everybody's less tetchy, maybe.
Yes.
It'd be powerful.
That's a good one. That's a real good one. Yeah. Okay.
Cool. So that's
now,
my list.
Yes. These days, it's been the world has changed and work life has changed a lot, and 360-degree change. And we were all going to work, and suddenly we were said that, oh, okay, look, there is a pandemic, and you got to sit at your home and do the same kind of work what you did within the four walls of the office. And things have changed. Like, there are no conference rooms, there are no meetings, there are no meeting with colleagues, no meeting with boss. So you kind of feel that you're left all alone, and like, you're taking decisions, and taking calls from home is difficult because you have your family around, and you're not kind of used to this kind of atmosphere, a professional atmosphere at home. So life changed a lot for quite a lot of people who are in the corporate world and other businessmen and all of that. So, which has led to high stress. So most of the audience question was how to manage high stress at work while keeping sane through it. Because when you're not able to cope up with stress, even these days, when you see attending interviews, people ask you, how good are you in coping stress? So that's become part of your resume, and it's part of your skill. I mean, if you want to work somewhere, you better know how to deal with stress. So what is one of or many of the tips that you would give to the audience to cope up high stress at work?
Yeah, great question. And, for some people, whilst there might be stress at work, sometimes it can be even worse at home. So it's bearing that in mind as well. You'd adapt these to your own situation. So the list that we've just given in number 2 is pretty extensive. And what I would say might kind of picks out of that to maybe look at, and bear in mind, this is where maybe coming back, replaying this part, keeping a couple of notes, you might say, actually, the one that really pops out for me is procrastination, that one, for example, or deep breathing. But it's about picking the one that works for you and trial them. How do we know till we try something, right? So that's another thing I urge you to do. But the ones that pop for me, that seem to be across the board, not only for me, but I've seen it so much for people in action when I recommended it, is hydration. So when it feels there's frustration, it feels like I can't think straight, it feels like it's all becoming a bit much, have a glass of water. And often doing that, I need to breathe. Okay, I breathe in, out before I drink it, and then I'll have then we take a breath afterwards. And it's interesting, it's the breathing. Deep breathing is obviously one that's linked with that, but it's interesting just to mention here quickly, what they were finding, or one of the reasons that people used to think that they could actually feel less stressed when they smoked was, guess what people do when they smoke?
You take air in.
Take a big breath, right?
Deep breathing. Yeah, it's deep breathing.
Yeah. So that was actually part of the therapeutic effects of smoking. Then, of course, there are all the disadvantages of it. But that's interesting that it was actually basically deep breathing, right? So the other one is nutritionals protocol. I'm thinking of the things, what can I put in place that's actually going to help me get a result sooner? So one of them is the hydration, deep breathing. Nutritionals protocol, that can be an instant way to actually help our cellular body biochemistry to shift. And like I said earlier, those results can be quite fast. At work, even if it might be at home, like you say, you're not actually in the corporate environment. So in some places people are, yes, but in a lot of places people aren't. But if you were in a scenario, take the stairs and have regular breaks taking the stairs rather than sitting in the lift. But I have a feeling that scenario of how we used to work is going to change anyway. And pondering our 5 gratitudes for the day. So I think I've mentioned maybe on another one of our sessions together that I've been a part of a 90 Days of Gratitude Facebook page. And so today was day 2,411 consecutive days of posting 5 things I'm grateful for every day. So it began with the challenge of doing it consecutively 90 days. And I just thought, well, why would I stop? And that was over 6.5 years ago, clearly, that I started doing that. And it set me up so well for, like you were saying earlier, setting up new habits of the way that we think, and therefore the way that we then express and do things in our lives. Another one that can be really handy when we're in a work situation and we know that we've got this much work to do in the morning, maybe then it's a break, then again before lunch, and then this much in the other. We've got stuff we've got to get done, whether at work or in the office. Prepare meals and snacks. So we're not relying on things that we might just reach for that are processed, that just happen to be in the cupboard. We're avoiding refined and processed foods. Look more for whole food, simple snacks, even something like carrot sticks with nut butter or cucumber sticks with hummus or something like that is going to do more for our bodies, more hydrated food, than going for something that is sugary or refined and processed. When a lot of sugar and salt is added, it becomes harder for our body to digest it, and then that can cause more problems down the road. Also avoiding sugar foods that are high in sugar, salt, caffeine, because they are going to be feeding inflammation in our body, which can then, oftentimes when we eat things that aren't that great or drink things that aren't that great, we feel even more like having more of them. And that's where just simply, even if we're feeling kind of unusually hungry, like we need to keep snacking, it may well be that we're hydrated. So having more water is often a really, really good way to handle that. So those are my top picks for those.
Yes. That's great. So we also spoke about what to avoid and what to eat when you're in high stress or when you're dealing with stressful situations, because it can only aggravate your health and make things worse. So it's better to take care of what goes in your mouth, on your plate, and be more mindful. Being more mindful really helps. Yes. Yes,
yeah, absolutely right. And go on.
So I was going to say that the tips were really great and wonderful. So were you going to add something more?
Well, first, just quickly, when you were talking about what goes in our mouths, the other thing that we have touched on, because you talked about really powerful podcasts, is what goes into our ears, what goes into our minds.
Oh, yes. Yes.
That can be just as powerful, right? We've covered that. So finding it a really good podcast, and that's a great tip. Just plugging into a podcast. I have a friend, she's building up her steps, how many steps she does every day. She's aiming always for 10,000. She has a little Fitbit set up that helps her know how many she's taken. And she always plugs into a podcast. And it's just a great way of keeping herself energized and informed. And it also has that positive impact, because those are the kind of ones that she chooses to be a positive impact for her nervous system. So we covered for number 3, the basics: whole foods, avoid refined processed ones that are going to be high in sugar, salt, fat, all kinds of fat, alcohol, caffeine, because they're going to feed inflammation, which really doesn't help the whole cycle. And it's interesting because the foods that we like eating, like fast food, sweets, and drinking alcohol, we often feel like doing these when it's the worst time for us to do that. And this can be a powerful time for doing what you mentioned earlier, which is to create healthier habits, to have better options on hand, so we can reach for those. So having my water here on my desk is great, because every time, it's probably time to have it. I look at my bottle, I realize it's probably time to have another drink.
Right.
And that'll be prompting many of you while you're listening, which is good.
It's true. I agree with you, because when you have stress, you forget to drink water.
It's absolutely.
You don't drink water.
We might go for coffee or think, but my energy is getting low. Actually, we're dehydrated more often than not. It's it's the top reason that people get migraines, headaches, irritability, they can't focus, and digestive issues. They're not drinking enough water.
Yeah.
Crazy, right? And if you have a coffee, you need to have more water, because that dehydrates you.
Sure.
So that's something to bear in mind. And just a little kind of anecdotal story. So for me, I used to be hooked on 15 coffees a day.
Wow.
I needed about 15 and more during exams. So it got up to about 20 coffees a day. Plus I would have, and I was stressed over these times, I would have one of those huge bars of chocolate and ice cream and lots of alcohol. So imagine what my body was like. So it took me a while to break that pattern fully.
It's
But
not
then it
easy. It
was,
becomes really addictive and you get these
oh, it
massive
is.
cravings. Yes.
Yeah, totally. So the things like I had sugar in my coffee, and the chocolate and the ice cream, they are sugar laden, and sugar is more addictive than cocaine. So it's effective, it works really well. And when I broke this pattern of eating, it was so much easier for me to deal with stressful periods in my life, whether it was study or to do with relationships or anything else that I was worrying about. And I didn't have all the side effects of trying to deal with what I had been having that would impact my skin, headaches, digestive problems, etc. So even though it can feel like the hard option, it actually ends up giving us so many more benefits besides helping dealing with stress, because then we don't need to deal with all of the other things that we caused because of what we did to try and deal with stress, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. And it's all, I would say that everything is under our control. Like, how you want to make choices, what you want to eat, how you want to live, how you want to think, and everything is under control. So, but when we are stressed, we think that everything is out of control. I've lost control of my life, and that is not so. So I would rather say that get a hold of your life, because everything is within you, and you could achieve greater things by controlling something that affects you on a day-to-day basis, which is stress. And if you really need help in this area, and so that's why you have experts like us, like health coaches and nutrition coaches, and we really guide you, and we always support you in your way towards building healthy habits, to lead a healthy lifestyle, to choose your foods. And if you really think that I'm not able to do it all alone, never fear, just give us a call or send us a message, and we're here to help you. That's what we do. Yeah,
absolutely. And here's the thing, is that it's not because we're stupid, but people who get into pickles and we think, oh gosh, what do I do? It's not because there's not enough information. Anyone can Google how to handle stress. Anyone can Google how to whatever it is these days.
Right.
However, what I'm seeing for us, all of us, is that sometimes it gets a bit much, and sometimes we don't have that second opinion, that discerning eye that can really help us when we're stuck in it. And that would be the main point, because it gets too much for all of us sometimes. And this is where we need to make sure we have a support circle, and that may well include obviously good friends, family, etc. However, also if you think about anything we want to get good at in our lives, how come Olympic athletes have coaches?
Coaches, absolutely.
How would they go if they didn't, right? And if we think about it, how many lives are we going to have? Well, it depends on one's philosophy, of course, but right now in this skin, at this time in my life, this is the shot that I have at life. And so if I chose to treat my body like she is an Olympic athlete or a Ferrari or whatever, something really beautiful and worth looking after, what would I do? Would I just have a bit of a go and pick away at Google periodically? Or if there's something that's a bit of a challenge and it keeps coming up, what am I worth to actually look deeper at that and get some help from somebody who knows what to do? So those are some thoughts too.
Absolutely. So we really hope that we answered all your questions and queries and whatever you have in your mind and that's been bothering you. So like I said, listen to podcasts, listen to music, listen to someone speak. Then, don't forget to listen to us, because there's so much of information that is being shared in this talk. And it's that one time is not enough. So play repeatedly, take notes, and try to implement it in your life. The first step is crucial. So when you start implementing it, it becomes part of your lifestyle. So thank you so much for listening to us today. And you can look up for FI JAMIESONFOLLAND.com if it's a website. And if it's Instagram, Facebook, she is present there as FI Jamieson Folland. And Fi, by the way, is from Matakana, New Zealand. And she's an osteopath and a health coach who has immense experience in this line of work. And I am Preeti Ayappan. I'm a nutrition coach. You can look up for me as Preeti Ayappan or Rising on My Own. So I'm on social media handles as well as I have a website. So thank you again for joining us, and thank you so much, Fee, for joining us and sharing this
pleasure.
wonderful information with us. Namaste.
You're so welcome. Namaste.